What is going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where we discuss everything Australian rules football, and today's attention once more turns to footy tipping. Round 22 kicking off tomorrow night with an absolute belter of a game. But before we get there, before we lock away our tips, time to reflect on round 21, which saw myself get a little bit of ascendancy comparatively to previous weeks. 8 out of 9, the near perfect tipping round, and I feel the game that a lot of people would have gotten wrong this past weekend was the game that I personally got wrong myself. But we'll run through the call sheet and see how we went. We tipped Geelong by 19, ever so close. It was 25 in the end. We got the margin very near where we needed to be, but we did tip Geelong, so we got a green tick. We tipped Fremantle to defeat the Bulldogs. They got the job done over at Optus Stadium. Sydney to defeat St Kilda, pinching the game from the palm of their hands once more. This is now twice this year both of these teams have met, and both times Sydney has pinched the game from St Kilda, who I felt held most of the momentum from start to finish. Hawthorn just getting over the line against North Melbourne in a closer contest that I think most would have anticipated. GWS over Port Adelaide. Again, another very close hit out, but my loss came at the hands of tipping Brisbane over Carlton. And Carlton didn't only just win. Carlton won by over 70 points. They registered 154. If anybody tipped Carlton to win here, you wouldn't have been on the wayside, because Carlton was very much in the position to win this game, and it was very winnable for them. But I didn't think they would win by this margin and just statistically break Brisbane down like they did. I don't give Carlton their just desserts often here on this channel, but I'm doing it this week. They were absolutely incredible. We tipped Richmond to defeat West Coast, and my boys got the job done. Melbourne defeated the Gold Coast, and Adelaide defeating Essendon. Before we continue, I'm going to throw out a little question of the day and just get, some ideas and some opinions from you guys at home. A lot of people, especially in the media, are saying that Richmond winning this game was useless, and they should have basically thrown it and tanked it to secure the number 1 pick. I'm of a personal belief that the win is going to do more for the young list that we've got in way of building some confidence and showing them that we are on the right track, that we have the right pieces, that this rebuild is something they can truly commit to. And getting a little bit of confidence at the back half of the year is great to take into the preseason heading into 2027. My point of view, the experts' point of view. Which do you land on? Should Richmond have won this? Should they have tanked it for the number 1 pick? Let's talk about it down below. But I got 8 out of 9. Very curious to see if anybody got the perfect tipping round this week. And they did. A good friend of mine, MajTig77, Con M, 9 out of 9. Sir, congratulations to yourself for tipping the perfect round and also topping the charts for this week in the competition. If you want to have a look at round margins before we look at total tips, this is where we landed. I actually finished in the top 3 for the round margin. That's actually quite incredible, but we'll scroll down. That's where it all is, and then we'll turn attention to total margin, which sees me thereabouts for where I am with my tips as well, which is a little bit unsavory for myself. I've fallen off the wayside a little bit this year. I need to finish the year off strong. But turning attention to total tips, Duncan P, Welsh Duke, holding it down once more for another round. Sir, you've done it again. Congratulations. Trailing him in second place, we have Big Kev Shendo on 136. Team Wiggles in third on 135. Ron Schill in fourth on 134. Equally in fifth place on 133, we have Evelyn May, Master Tipper from PA, and Skyvo. And then rounding out the top 10, we have Some Cripple, Dusty Fendoff 4, Christopher W, all on 132, with Memazar on 132 as well, knocking on the door in 11th place. Congratulations to my top 10. Huge thank you to everybody that appears on this list. Again, we're hoping to do bigger and better things moving forward. Only a couple of rounds to go. And I hate that fact, because I've said it over numerous videos leading up to this point in time, and I'll say it again. The gap between the end of the season and the start of the next season is too big for me. We've got a trade period, we've got a draft period, we can watch some AFLW if you're that way inclined, but then all the pre-season stuff kind of drags out a bit, and then the season proper comes around and then it's gone again. And to think that we've only got 3 rounds of football to go before the finals is absolutely wild. But with that being said, it kicks off tomorrow night. Let's get our tips in for round 22. Now, I said Thursday night. Now, I did say tomorrow night kicks off with a belter of a game. I actually think North Melbourne are going to make a great contest of this game. Both at Marvel, both playing incredibly well. Bulldogs, North Melbourne, a lot riding on this game, which is why I think it is going to be a great contest to watch. North Melbourne win this game, and then statistically, if other things fall in line, they can still finish in that wildcard configuration. They need a lot of good to happen to go that way, but it's still mathematically possible. The Bulldogs, if they want to play finals this year, need to win this game. So everything is going to be on the line. Having a look at the last 5, North Melbourne have lost their last 5 games. The Bulldogs have won 3 from 5, obviously losing to Fremantle most recently this past weekend. And North Melbourne only just fumbling to Hawthorn. And that is only due to the fact that they dropped off with pressure in that final term. Similar circumstances to the week prior where they dropped off in that final term against St Kilda. 2 games that had they have won, they would have well and truly still been in touch with the wild card, and it wouldn't have to be a mathematical anomaly for them to make it there. The Bulldogs, however, have defeated them 3 of the last 3 times, twice of which we did see play out last season, and every single time the Bulldogs have secured well over 100 points. So this is a game where the Bulldogs are going to be wanting to hit the scoreboard hard. Aaron Norton didn't play last week, but I feel with the comments that Luke Beveridge made during the week, Aaron Norton and Cody Waitman will play this game against North. They just weren't going to get their bodies ready for the trip to make it to Fremantle. So take that as you will if they're being managed or whatever the case may be. But they come back in, they give a lot more potency to that forward line, which is something they missed against Fremantle last week. They missed that connection because Fremantle able to intercept that ball and just get and go was too insurmountable for them in the end. I think the Bulldogs win this game. At Marvel, they get some players back. I think just North Melbourne, with dropping off with their pressure late in games the last few weeks, the Bulldogs can really expose that, considering the Bulldogs have been slow starters the last few weeks, but have finished strong. So that's kind of a simulation of what's going to hold them in good stead in this game, because we know North Melbourne's going to drop off, and we know the Bulldogs can turn it up at that point. I'm going to go the Bulldogs here, and we're going to go the Bulldogs by 26 points, which is a rather large margin. I mean, 4 goals, but I think they can get the job done, and this will secure them, I think, pretty much at least a wild card spot if they can win this. It would take them the 52 points overall, which would put them at equal 6th heading into or out of this game, ahead of all the other games being played. And I don't know how they look for the last 2 rounds following, but this puts them in a good position to potentially feature in finals this year. Friday night, another belter, and this could determine configuration for the top 4. We currently have Hawthorn on 58 points, and then we have the Brisbane Lions on 52. A win here for Brisbane would take them to 56, and then you would expect Hawthorn to have to lose their last 2 to probably drop out of the top 4. I think they play Collingwood next week, and then I can't remember who they played the last round. It might be a bit of an easier run for them in that particular round. So Hawthorn wanting to solidify their top 4, Brisbane wanting to make a case for top 4, considering Melbourne and Adelaide are still floating around. This is being played at the Gabba, Brisbane's home turf. Both teams have won 4 from their last 5, but Brisbane obviously coming off a smacking by Carlton, and Hawthorn coming off of that close contest against North. Brisbane have won 2 of the last 3 hitouts, with both of those wins coming last season, and then Hawthorn beat them quite convincingly back in 2024. Going to be interesting this game to see the ins and outs, because there were some injuries to Brisbane out of that game, but I'm pretty sure I saw Hugh McCluggage, I saw Logan Morris all out of the game due to injury by the end. So it's going to be interesting to see the ins and outs here. I don't know whether Brisbane, in the position they're in, push full tilt for the top 4, whether they rest some players now, knowing that the AFL's come out and made that call on players not being able to be rested in round 24 heading into that wildcard round, which I think is a ridiculous call. You're able to manage players all throughout the year, but now you can't do it in round 24 heading into finals, when that's going to further disadvantage the wildcard teams who have to play an extra week just to make it into the finals, and all the other teams get a week off anyway. So, you know, Scott Pendlebury managed throughout the year to get his match, season defining, the match game breaking record done by a certain game. And that was perfectly fine. I just think it's ridiculous that some rules for some rules for others. But anyway, Brisbane and Hawthorn, who takes the win here? Hawthorn against North still just had their systems looking incredibly great. Forward half chains looked solid. They scored 4 goals from inside 50 intercept as well. And if Carlton can pick Brisbane's defensive line apart, I feel Hawthorn can do the same. But Brisbane back at home aren't going to fumble an absolute belting and then come back and play insipid football. They're going to show a lot of fight here because they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. The only thing I can think of that could cause a little bit of disconnect here is the fact that Lachie Neale was caught touring Collingwood's club rooms last weekend before that Carlton-Brisbane game, and we could see a little bit of discourse between players at Brisbane in the final couple of rounds. But I'm tentatively going to say Brisbane at home until the team announcements are made, and if there are some very substantial ins and outs for Brisbane, I'm going to change my tip to Hawthorn. Saturday kicks off with Melbourne versus Fremantle. I'm actually going to be going to this game. The first game I'm going to see live this year, and it's through my daughter's Auskick Centre. We're all very excited to check this game out. I might even do a match day vlog. I've never done something like that before, but we might try, tinkle the ivories a little bit, do something a little bit different. But at the MCG, coming into this game, Melbourne winning 4 of their last 5, Fremantle winning 4 of their last 5, Fremantle beating Melbourne 2 of the last 3 outings, but the one time it has been in Melbourne, it was Melbourne the victors back in 2025, and Melbourne has only lost 1 game at the MCG this year. Interesting stat. It was a couple of weeks ago when they dropped it, and they've been playing some really fun football, but I think Fremantle's run and carry game could dismantle Melbourne quite effectively and quickly, given that Melbourne is playing with such a younger list to what we've seen in recent years. That inexperience could see them on the wayside a little bit of that run and carry game. So I'm going to go Fremantle at the MCG. I will be cheering on Fremantle from the stands, and let's hope they can pick up a win. They've pretty much already secured. They can't lose the minor premiership from here. They can draw if Sydney go on a 3-game win streak and Fremantle don't win a game for the rest of the year. But there's no way Fremantle don't win a game in the last 3, and they'll win this game here, effectively securing the minor premiership and that number 1 spot. Speaking of Sydney, they take on Port Adelaide at the SCG. Port Adelaide have lost 4 of their last 5. Sydney have won 3 of their last 5. It has been Sydney twice of their last 3 outings. However, last year we did see Port Adelaide upset Sydney in Sydney. So, interesting watch here. I feel with some of the outs Port Adelaide have, and I said in my round recap video this past week, Port Adelaide are going to be held in a lot better stead than what people are giving credit for if Zach Butters does leave, because they've been showing a lot of fight without Zach Butters in this team. But I just feel, once more, similar circumstances to Fremantle against Melbourne, the run and carry game of Sydney here could be too damning for Port Adelaide to stop. We know earlier this year they played down in Adelaide, and Sydney in back-to-back weeks pinched games from St Kilda and Port Adelaide by less than a kick, and 3 points was the victory the way of Sydney earlier in the piece. But I think Sydney are going to win by a much bigger margin this time around. I think Charlie Curnow is in a lot more reputable form. Errol Goulden back in the team is adding another element to this midfield. Now that we've got no Zach Butters in the team, the tag goes straight away to Jason Horne-Francis, who is the next best, and then the rung under that is a little bit few and far between. So I think Sydney walk away here with at least a 5-goal win. I think they're going to turn it up at home. GMHBA Stadium, Geelong taking on Essendon. Do we really need to talk about it? Essendon had that great win against GWS a couple of weeks ago, but they have dropped 4 of their last 5. Geelong winning 3 from their last 5, and it has been Geelong by a big margin the last 3 times they have played, and it will be Geelong at home here. Again, this is just tacking on to the comments I've made about the fixturing in the last couple of weeks. I think it's ridiculous that Geelong, Hawthorn, and some similar teams are able to run into North Melbourne, Richmond, Essendon, West Coast, Port Adelaide, all in the back end of the year, which doesn't only give them almost guaranteed wins unless an upset truly happens, but the wins should be percentage boosting on paper. And if that is the case, they have a statistical advantage against other teams that are fighting for the same spots. And I feel fixturing needs to be different to ensure that every team gets an equal crack at it. But we're going to go Geelong. If Essendon drop the ball by 70 to Adelaide at home, they're going to be absolutely knocked from pillar to post by Geelong away at Geelong's home deck. Final game on Saturday night sees Adelaide Oval play host to Adelaide and Richmond. Richmond obviously winning their last game against West Coast, so 1 from 5. Adelaide have won 4 from 5. And from the head-to-head battles, it has been Adelaide 2 from 3, with the last win coming by Richmond in 2024, which was at Adelaide Oval. So we have been known to beat them on their home deck. However, they've trounced us twice on our own home deck. So going to be hard to see Richmond picking up a win here, but hey, momentum and confidence from that win against West Coast, I'm hoping should at least see a competitive game of football. We took it to Adelaide for 3 quarters earlier in the year, and I feel the 98-61 scoreline flatters Adelaide a little bit, because for 3 quarters we turned it up, and it was that run and carry handball game that we put on display that not only did well against them, but has done well against Brisbane, well against North. We won against West Coast. It is a game plan and a style we need to invest back in, because Richmond's run and carry game helped win 3 premierships. So it's there, proof in the pudding, but it's hard to back against Adelaide on their home deck, especially with finals in their sights and a top 4 position currently for them to grab. I'm going to go them by, I'm going to say at least 3 goals. I want Richmond to be competitive in my mind. First on Sunday is at Korobi Group Oval, Manuka, GWS, Gold Coast Suns. Got to go GWS here, right? Gold Coast have lost their last 5. I think they've lost their last 9. For GWS, they have won 3 from their last 5. The Gold Coast Suns have beaten them earlier in the year at People's First, but it has been GWS both times prior to that, both of those coming back last season. GWS have just been finding ways to get things done without No Hogan, without Finn Callaghan. They don't have and haven't had all season Josh Kelly, Tom Green, some big names to come back in. Jake Stringer is out of contract at the end of the year. There is talks that he might be going to Collingwood, or Collingwood's at least interested. It has now been spoken about as well that Collingwood is showing interest in Jesse Hogan. These players are going to want to start playing out of their skin when opportunity comes knocking, to start bolstering their stocks when it comes to the trade period, just to beef up a contract a little bit more. And Jake Stringer is peak when he's out of contract. This is where he starts kicking bags of 5 and 6. The Gold Coast have lost a couple of close games, but they've been very hapless around the contest. Their defenders get a lot of ball, but that's because they chip the ball around defensively. Their midfielders haven't been as potent as they should be. Is this a game where the Gold Coast can rock up to Manuka Oval and get a win? Yes, it is a game, but I'm going GWS, because GWS, with, again, mathematical chances of finishing in that wildcard configuration, I think they're going to push for a final tilt. We then have West Coast playing host to Collingwood at Optus Stadium. West Coast have lost their last 5. Collingwood have only dropped 1 of their last 5. And it has been Collingwood every time these 3 have played, or 2 have played the last 3 times, rather, including a hit out earlier this year where Collingwood defeated the West Coast Eagles by 10 points. Collingwood are in a position where they must win this game if they want to play finals this year, and I'm going to back them in. I just feel, even though West Coast had momentum in the Richmond game, if Richmond were able to pick them apart around the contest a bit, I think Collingwood can do exactly the same. Going to be interesting to see what they do with Nick Dacos in way of potential tagging, but I think around the ground, even with Braden Maynard out, I don't know the extent to the Howe injury. Obviously, Perryman might not play due to that hamstring that he did last week as well. So this could be another game where on the wayside, I change my decision based on ins and outs, because if defensively Collingwood have been knocked around, I might even be tempted to move to West Coast here. But for now, we're going Collingwood. And the final game of the round, a lot of implications here. This is 10th versus 11th. This is a game where if St Kilda win, they are on equal points with Carlton, and they both are in the window to fight for a wildcard spot. If Carlton win, they put a gap on some of the other teams, and it's still possible that they lose a couple and drop out, but they need to win this if they are, well, both teams. It's a must-win game for both, but probably more so with the run Carlton have had. If they want to play finals, they have to win. St Kilda, if they don't win this, it makes it a hell of a lot harder on the run home. Both teams have won 3 from their last 5, including Carlton's emphatic win against Brisbane, and it has been St Kilda, surprisingly, 2 of the last 3 outings. But I'm going to go Carlton here. Hard to back against them with how they played against Brisbane. If they fumble to St Kilda, and it's a very Carlton thing to do, don't get me wrong, but they shouldn't fumble this game. Just defensively, in the midfield, the forward line, everything was as cohesive as I've seen from Carlton in years, to be absolutely fair. And they should do a number on St Kilda here. TDK might be out with that injury. Jack Silvani could be out with the injury he sustained as well. So a little bit beaten around the contest last week, St Kilda, and those injuries might come back to haunt them a little bit. We are running Bulldogs, Brisbane, Fremantle, Sydney, Geelong, Adelaide, GWS, Collingwood, and Carlton. The only 2 games I'm tempted to maybe flip is whether or not injuries sustained to Collingwood are going to potentially put them in a window to lose. We could potentially look at the Gold Coast as a swap here, and maybe going to Hawthorn over Brisbane. Tentative to change. Hard to do, obviously, on a Wednesday when the games come out on a Thursday, but I'm happy with this list here. Very happy with this list. That is it for this video. Do hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button down below. If you want to get on board the community we are building here, hit that subscribe button and keep your eyes peeled over the weekend. Either tomorrow night, no, we'll make it Friday night. Either Friday night or Saturday morning, there is going to be a brand new video dropping on the channel that could be something that we do over the course of not only the end of the season, but going into the off season as well, to give us something to do. I'm really excited to bring this video to you all. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.